So you found the perfect piece of land. Maybe it's 10 acres with a beautiful mountain view. Maybe it's a wooded parcel with a creek running through it. Or maybe you finally found enough acreage to build a home you've always wanted while having some space between you and the neighbors. The photos look great. The price seems reasonable, and you're already imagining where the house is going to sit. But before you write that offer, there are some things you need to know. I've been helping buyers and sellers with land, farms, acreage, and rural properties throughout Central Virginia for many years, and I've seen buyers avoid costly mistakes simply because they asked the right questions before they bought. In this video, I'm going to share 10 things I think every land buyer should know before purchasing property in Central Virginia. Let's get started. Number one, what do you want to do with the property? Before you worry about septic systems, wells, surveys, or anything else, ask yourself a simple question. What exactly do you want to do with this property? Do you want to build a primary residence, a weekend cabin, raise horses, hunt, start a small farm, keep chickens in a garden? This is my favorite, as these are two things I get to do with my property. Or do you simply hold the property as an investment? The answer matters because different properties are suited to different uses. A parcel that's perfect for hunting may be terrible for building. A property that's ideal for horses may not have the mountain views you want. And a beautiful wooded tract may require significant clearing before a home can be built. The clearer you are about your goals, the easier it becomes to evaluate whether a property is actually a good fit. Number two, can you build on it? This is often the first technical question that needs to be answered. Just because land is for sale doesn't necessarily mean that you can build the type of home you want. One of the first things I encourage buyers to investigate is whether the property has an approved septic system site. Has the property already been perked? Is there a current certification letter? How many bedrooms was it approved for? Has that approval expired? In Virginia, the septic approval often determines the practical value of a piece of land. If a property won't support a conventional septic system, it may require an engineered alternative system, which can significantly increase costs. I've done an entire video on septic systems in Virginia because this subject alone can make or break a land purchase. The key takeaway is simple. Never assume you can build until you've verified that you can build. Number three, access matters more than most people think. Many buyers focus on the land itself and pay very little attention to how they actually get to it. Is there public road frontage? Is access provided by an easement? Is there a shared driveway? Is there a private road maintenance agreement? Is it in writing? Who's responsible for repairs to the road? What happens if a culvert washes out? What happens if a tree falls and blocks the road? These aren't exciting questions, but they are important questions. Access problems can affect financing, future resale value, and even your day-to-day enjoyment of the property. Always understand exactly how you get to the land and who is responsible for maintaining that access. I remember attempting to sell a 40-acre parcel that was completely landlocked with no legal access recorded in the deed records at the courthouse. While there was a driveway that went up to it, the owner of said driveway would in no way allow access across it. Pursuing the matter through the court system was inconclusive. The seller's attorney was in the process of making a second attempt when we found a neighbor, named in the lawsuit, willing to purchase the acreage and attach it to their own. Problem solved, but it took 4 years to reach that point. Number four, water is not automatic. In rural Central Virginia, most properties rely on private wells. Unlike a subdivision where water service may already be available, rural land buyers need to think about where their water will come from. Has a well already been drilled? How deep are neighboring wells? What kind of production rates are typical in the area? In some locations, obtaining a productive well is relatively straightforward. In others, drilling costs can increase significantly depending on geology and depth requirements. I remember showing a property once where 12 well holes had been drilled. All came up dry, yet the surrounding neighbors had producing wells. Rather unusual to be sure. In another instance, a well that had been serving a house for years was deemed on inspection to be inadequate for modern needs, and the seller had to have a new one drilled before the property could be sold. A well doesn't have to be in place before you buy, but you should understand what you're likely facing before moving forward. Number five, topography can become expensive. One of the most beautiful pieces of land I've ever seen had an incredible view. The problem, the view came with a very steep slope. Beautiful topography can also mean expensive topography. driveways, excavation, retaining walls, site preparation, drainage improvements. All these things can add significant cost before construction even begins. When evaluating land, don't just look at the view. Think about how you're actually going to get a driveway, a house, a septic system, and utilities onto the property. Number 6, property lines aren't always where you think they are. Many buyers assume old fences mark property lines. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. County GIS maps are useful tools, but they are not surveys. If boundary locations are important, and they usually are, a current survey may be one of the best investments you can make. A survey can identify corners, easements, encroachments, access routes, acreage discrepancies. Before you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on land, it's worth knowing exactly what you're buying. Number 7, understanding division rights. This is something many buyers never think about. A property may be 20 acres, or 50 acres, or 100 acres. It doesn't automatically mean it can be divided. Every county has zoning regulations, and in Central Virginia, every county's zoning rules and the official interpretation of those regulations can be slightly different. Minimum lot sizes, subdivision requirements, road frontage requirements. Sometimes previous divisions have already consumed available division rights. If future subdivision potential is important to you, verify that information before you buy, not afterward. A phone call to the county zoning office can save a lot of money and frustration in the long run. Easements and covenants. Not every rural property is completely unrestricted. Some properties have protective covenants. Some are located in homeowners associations. Some have utility easements. Others may be subject to conservation easements. These restrictions aren't necessarily bad. In fact, some buyers actively seek them out. But you need to know what they are. The last thing you want is to discover after closing that you can't do something you assumed would be allowed. Don't forget about internet service. 20 years ago, this was not a major issue. Today, it's often one of the first questions that buyers ask, especially buyers relocating or people who are working remotely. Don't assume it's available simply because a property is located near a road. Verify what services are actually available. There are websites that can help with this. Rural, cable, fixed wireless, Starlink, cellular service. The answer can vary dramatically from one property to the next, and before you assume that Starlink and satellite coverage are everywhere, which they are, learn about the term latency and why it matters. Think about resale before you buy. Even if you plan to stay forever, circumstances change. When evaluating land, ask yourself, would somebody else want this property? Does it have good access, a good building site, reasonable terrain, internet availability, usable acreage? These characters don't just improve your enjoyment of the property, they also help protect future resale value. The tomorrow is usually the property that made sense to buy today. Land can be one of the most rewarding real estate purchases you'll ever make. But unlike buying a house, many of the most important issues aren't immediately visible. Some are underground, some are buried in county records, some don't become apparent until long after closing. So taking the time to investigate these issues before making an offer can save you a tremendous amount of money, frustration, and disappointment. If you're considering buying land, acreage, farms, or rural property anywhere in Southern Virginia, I'd be happy to help. I'm Tom Woolfolk with Keller Williams Alliance, serving Charlottesville and the surrounding counties of Albemarle, Greene, Orange, Louisa, Madison, and Fluvanna. If you found this video helpful, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.